So I don't know if I mentioned this, but recently I moved from my home country of Scotland all the way here to Toronto, Canada. Did I mention it? I think I mentioned it somewhere. I am certain that I mentioned it at least once, one time, at some point. And all things considered, the process was actually fairly smooth. But now that I'm nice and settled and I've had a chance to look back at stuff, there's definitely one or two things that I wish I knew before I moved here that I wish someone had told me so that I could be a little bit more prepared when I first arrived. I'm actually running a little bit late. I'm supposed to be on the way to rehearsals at Illusionarium right now. So this is gonna be a run and gun video. All right, here we go. 5 things I wish I knew before I moved here. Alexa, switch off my lights.
Time moves slow.
Beautiful.
What are we waiting on? I keep your blood on my shirt. Let it run. I worship the fire.
Over the past 3 days, all the snow has melted. There's the piles, but it's got a lot warmer. Oh, nearly slipped. So number 1 is that here, a lot of the houses and apartments, in fact, the general kind of rule here is that they come unfurnished. Now, I kind of wish I'd known this before I moved here because obviously it becomes quite an expensive startup cost to buy all your furniture outright. But I guess it does kind of make sense because at the end of the day, your house, your apartment is where you're going to live. It's kind of your permanent base. So you want it to be as comfortable and as personal as possible. Now, obviously for me, as someone who moved here with literally 2 suitcases full of belongings, it was a little bit of a shock to the system. I actually built up my furniture over the course of 2 months, buying the essentials straight away and then waiting until I needed other things and just built it up slowly. But if you're planning to move here, I would absolutely recommend building into your budget the money to furnish your place as well. Furnished places do exist, but they're few and far between, and usually landlords and people charge a little bit more money for the use of the furniture as well, which is a bit of a strange one, very different from the UK. But yeah, that's the first thing. Very frustratingly, just missed my streetcar. Lovely day, I'm gonna walk. Alright, so I've just arrived at work. This is my dressing room, the beautiful dressing room, and I thought it'd be an appropriate place to talk about the second thing that I wish I knew before I moved here, which is that you need your SIN number before you can do pretty much anything here. Now, your SIN number, or your social insurance number, is the Canadian equivalent of the UK's national insurance number. It is a unique identifier that identifies you within the government systems for things like tax and credit. You get it by presenting your work permit and some ID at a Service Canada office, and actually I found it really easy to get hold of mine. I made the mistake of trying to open a bank account and getting things like a phone contract before I got my SIN number, and they just wouldn't let me do it. So I would wholeheartedly recommend anyone new here doing that first, because a lot of different things do actually link back to your SIN number. Opening a bank account and getting a Canadian phone contract were 2 things that would have really helped me in the first few weeks here, so absolutely make this your number 1 priority. I'm actually planning to do a few more videos on my experiences in moving to Canada on this channel, so if you like what you see, if you found this useful or interesting, then make sure to hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Okay, I've got an afternoon of rehearsal, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. So I just finished a day of rehearsals and figuring stuff out here at Illusionarium. A little sweaty, so I changed my t-shirt. And I'm now actually sitting in the VIP room here at Illusionarium. I'm here to tell you the third thing that is really important to know if you move here to Canada, specifically maybe to Toronto, and that is that cell phone plans here are heinously expensive. This is a real one for me. I could not believe how expensive cell phone plans were here. Back home, I was paying the equivalent of 35 Canadian dollars for like a SIM-only unlimited data plan, so that meant I had unlimited everything for 35 Canadian dollars. Here, the same thing, which is not called SIM only, I think they call it bring your own device. But for my unlimited plan with unlimited everything and data as well is nearer to 100 Canadian dollars. It's about 3 times as much, which is wild. Now granted, you can get cheaper plans, they do exist, but if you're like me and you use a load of data, or as the Canadians call it, data, then you'll find that they get pretty extortionate. Now this for me is one of the things that I personally never scrimp on. I've learned this lesson in the past, that when you scrimp on your phone plans and you go for a cheaper one and try to deal with it, it always bites you in the ass down the line. You end up paying massive overage charges or just upgrading it anyway, and it becomes a bit more expensive to upgrade once you're locked into a network than it is to just do it from the very start. Now I was super confused as to why phone plans here were so expensive, so I actually went and did a little bit of research into it, and it turns out that the reason for this is that in Canada there is pretty much 3 telecoms providers that provide all the telecoms for the whole country, and so they hold a bit of a monopoly here. Bell, Rogers and Telus account for over 97% of all of Canadian cell phone plan coverage. And because of this, they are some of the most profitable telecoms company in the entire world, so why would they make their plans cheaper? Super interesting, but super frustrating. It's been a pretty long day, so I'm gonna head home now. I'll see you in a bit. Back home. So I'm home from a full day of rehearsals and doing things at Illusionarium, and I thought I'd share with you the 4th thing that I think that everyone should know before they move to Canada. And that is that your credit rating or your credit score does not count here. Back home, I'd actually built up a pretty good credit score by paying bills on time, not accruing any debt, and also just by being really good at managing my money in general. However, it transpires that none of that means anything when you move to Canada. They don't take it into account, there's no way to transfer that over, and that makes it kind of tough to get access to credit when you first move here. Now, with someone that has a bit of savings, credit doesn't mean a massive amount to me, but it is a useful safety net to have. That being said, most banks here will give you an introductory credit offer, a very low limit, which is great for getting you started and starting you on that ladder to build up a better credit rating here. I would personally, therefore, recommend opening a credit card as soon as possible and using it for everything. Credit here does count for a lot, especially if you plan to stay here for a while and eventually you're going to want to get a mortgage or any sort of business loan. So the earlier you get this started, the easier life will become later on. I use my credit card here to buy absolutely everything. Everything from a daily coffee to my lunches to my transport and travel to big ticket purchases as well. And I just make sure to pay it off at the end of every single week just to stay on top of it and make sure that I'm not paying any interest. This also comes with the added bonus for me of building up points every time I use my card, which I can redeem towards a whole bunch of things, but specifically with my credit card, it's for air miles and flights, which I will eventually use to visit home. Now, I've been working all day, so I think it's about time that I got some dinner. So dinner on after a really long day. And while I'm in the kitchen talking about food, I thought that maybe I would also talk about the 5th thing that you should know before you move here, which is that buying alcohol here is weird. Now, I know I'm Scottish. I'm not saying that I consume alcohol as if it's food. This was something that especially affected me in my first 2 weeks here when I was quarantining in an Airbnb because I had no idea how to get it delivered because I couldn't just buy it on my normal grocery order. I don't know if this is the case for all of Canada, but I know that in Ontario, and I know for sure specifically Toronto, that most supermarkets and grocery stores don't sell liquor or spirits. Some of them sell a bit of wine and beer, and I do believe that there might be exceptions to this, but most of the time you need to go to a dedicated liquor store to get your alcohol. Most of these are called and run by the LCBO, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, and locally I've found that most people tend to say that this is just a way for the state to keep regulating and profiting off the sales of alcohol by, once again holding a monopoly on the places that you can buy it. But formerly, this is actually a hangover, pun intended, from the days of Prohibition. It isn't the end of the world, it's not terrible, but it's also a bit of a pain that you can't just pick up alcohol with your normal everyday grocery shop. And again, for me, it really did make getting this delivered during lockdown a lot more difficult. So at the end of my long day, there you have it. 5 things that I wish I had known before I moved here to Toronto, Canada. Now, I have learned so much more about this country, the people here, and life here in general in the 3.5 months since I moved here. So if that is something that you'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about, then make sure to hit that big red subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.